another political vlog. Very timely and topical. We heard a lot about gun control in the media lately since the last mass shooting. And gun control is really tricky because you have people on either side that are just extremely, I would say, to put it mildly, they're extreme on this issue. So I'm going to examine the issue as best I can and give my opinion on what can be done to prevent mass shootings and to cut back on gun violence in general. Let's look at the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is odd because it says a well-regulated militia. Then it says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That seems contradictory. A well-regulated militia would have to be regulated, right? I mean, but then not be infringed. Take a look at the First Amendment. There's nothing in the First Amendment about a well-regulated right to speech, well-regulated speech, well-regulated press, well-regulated religion, well-regulated right to assembly, petition the government. None of that is. In fact, the only one of the Bill of Rights that even has the term well-regulated is the Second Amendment. So what does that mean? Is that I've had people tell me in online forums and on article messages and threads on Facebook and whatnot that our Second Amendment right means that you could have anything that is an arm. That means surface-to-air missiles, rocket launchers, mortar shells with mustard gas. Those are all arms, and so they can't be infringed. If our right to keep and bear arms can't be infringed, then does that mean we can have nuclear weapons if we can make them? And if not, if we don't have an right to keep and bear any arm, where do you draw the line? I think that's where most people kind of have their strongest opinions on. My opinion is like automatic weapons. It is very hard to purchase an automatic weapon. Okay, and that's been on the books since the 1930s. Okay, has that led to gun confiscation? No. And gun confiscation, people think, oh, we want to ban all guns and confiscate all. First of all, that's just illogical because it's impossible. It's improbable. There is no way the government, even in federal, state, and local working together, could confiscate all the guns or even the majority of guns in this country. So all this talk about gun confiscation is just silly. So my first solution is to put semi-automatic rifles, at least semi-automatic rifles, under the same regulations as automatic weapons. Okay, makes sense. You can still buy one if you pass all the checks and balances for that. But it prevents somebody from just getting mad at their boss, going down to the local sporting goods store and buying an AR-15 and going back to work and shooting the place up in a half an hour. And that's kind of ridiculous. Another point that people bring up is, well, if they don't use AR-15s, they're going to use something else. So that's okay. Just let them have those. Since if they don't have those, they're going to use something else. It's like saying, well, I would lock up my drain cleaner because my toddler likes to put things in his mouth. And well, if he doesn't put drain cleaner in his mouth, he's going to put something else in his mouth. So I might as well leave my drain cleaner sitting out. Okay, it doesn't make sense. Why should we make it easier for people to get guns that can kill a lot of people really quickly? The argument they're going to use something else. How many mass murders in the last 20 years, let's say since Columbine, have happened with people with knives. Like I think there was a knife attack in China where 5 people, I think they stabbed like 30 people. Okay, what if they all had AR-15s? How many more people would they have killed? Okay, I can outrun a lot of people wielding knives. I can't outrun a bullet. Okay. And people say, well, what about pressure cookers and cars and stuff like that? Well, first of all, again, how many mass murders have been done with pressure cookers? How many mass murders have been done with cars compared to semi-automatic rifles? Okay. First of all, why was the AR-15 originally marketed and manufactured? It was for the military. It wasn't for civilian use. It was for military use. And once they figured out the military wasn't going to buy them all, then they marketed them to civilian use. So that argument is just silly. That if they don't have these, we're just going to use something else because I already pointed out the Drano part. Another argument against gun control is the argument that, like I said, bad guys are going to get guns on the black market, which is true. I mean, but how easy is it to get an AR-15 on the black market? First of all, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to smuggle an AR-15 around compared to like a handgun. Look at the size difference. A lot easier to keep a handgun concealed in the street and pass it to somebody in exchange for money than it is a AR-15. Which brings me to other people say, well, we banned drugs and that doesn't work. Well, I can put a lot of drugs in my hand, pills, weed, coke. I can't conceal an AR-15 in my hand. Okay. Once again, comparing guns and drugs is just silly. It's not a logical argument. So I think we should just make semi-automatic rifles as hard to buy as automatic rifles. That's my solution to help preventing mass murders. I think we should have universal background checks. I think it should be easier for law enforcement to put people on the list for no sale list. I think we should err on caution on that side. That still allows law-abiding citizens to purchase weapons for self-defense or for hunting. And so there'd be another argument, and I've literally had people on online say that we have a God-given right to bear arms. You really think God wants us to be armed? If Jesus were around today, would he be passing out AR-15s to his disciples? If he run a gun shop? God-given right to have guns? What does religion have to do with guns? I mean, seriously. And then, people say, well, guns are just inanimate objects. They can't kill anybody. Well, if guns don't kill people, why do we give them to soldiers and going in combat? Shouldn't we give them anything? Guns don't kill people. Hey, let's give them a feather duster. Guns don't kill people. Why should soldiers have them? Think about it. If guns are an inanimate object, which they are, by the way, then how many people are willing to sacrifice their lives for their guns? The old phrase, "You can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead hand." So you're willing to sacrifice your life so you don't have to give up an inanimate object. An inanimate object is worth more than your life. Wow. Once again, this goes back to the mass confiscation theory, which is stupid. Okay, let's look at gun confiscation throughout history. How many times has a democratically elected government confiscated a country's guns and then waged war against the country's civilians? Of the history of democracy, you can go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, and they didn't have guns, but how many times has a democratically elected government disarmed its population and then waged war on the population? People point to the Soviet Union. That wasn't a democratic elected country, government. Khmer Rouge wasn't democratically elected. And then to say that the government is going to turn its guns on its civilians if we didn't have guns is a total insult to the military. My dad served over 20 years in the military. He did a tour of duty in Southeast Asia during Vietnam. A forward air command, very dangerous job. And to suggest that, if the president during my dad's 20 plus years would have told him, go drop bombs, he was in the Air Force, go drop bombs on civilians, he wouldn't have done that. His oath was to the Constitution, not to the president, not even to his commanders. His oath was to the Constitution. That came first. So to suggest that our rank and file military men and women would just turn their guns on civilians just because they were ordered to is really insulting to our men and women in uniform. That they would just do that so easily, turn their guns on their fellow man. Okay, let's say they did. Let's say somehow, we elect some guy who becomes, a megalomaniac and he wants the military to disarm the United States. Yeah, look at what the military has at its disposal and look at what civilians have at their disposal. It's not going to be pretty. Civilians armed with even AR-15s against tanks and gunships and A-10 attack planes and stuff like that. I mean, come on. This whole mass confiscation thing is just stupid. Anybody who believes it is just living in a fantasy world. And once again, they're putting inanimate objects over lives. Guns are not more important than lives. So my solution for cutting back on mass shootings, make automatic weapons, at least semi-automatic weapons, semi-automatic rifles. At least semi-automatic rifles as hard to get as automatic rifles. Make it easier to get people on the no-sale list and have universal background checks. Make it a federal crime to sell a weapon to somebody on the federal no sale list. Doesn't matter if you're a gun dealer or a private citizen. If you sell somebody a gun and that person is on the no sale list, then you should go to jail. And if that person uses that gun to commit a crime, you should go to jail for a long time. All right, so that's my solution for trying to prevent mass shootings. A lot of people say, well, we should arm teachers. That's not going to prevent a mass shooting. That's only if I can see the guy coming first and shoot him before he opens fire. That's reactive. We need to be proactive. And also, mass shootings don't just take place at schools. They've taken place at movie theaters, churches, concerts, nightclubs. So we're going to put heavily armed guards at every single public place in America. We're going to turn the United States into a giant prison where there's armed guards in every street. Is that really the world we want to live in? We cannot accept mass shootings as the price of living. Another political blog. Oh, well, we can't prevent mass shootings without timely and infringing on people. We heard a lot about gun control on the media lately since the last mass shooting. Now, gun control is really tricky because you have people on either side that are just extremely, New Orleans and Baltimore, places I would say that is a problem. To put it mildly, a big problem. Here's my solution on back on gun crimes. So I'm going to examine number one, end the war on drugs. I can give how many gun crimes are committed because can be done to prevent mass shootings and to cut back on gun violence in general. Let's look at the Second Amendment. To buy drugs on the black market. The Second Amendment is odd because it says very well-regulated militia. At the very least, then it says legalized marijuana shall not be infringed. It takes all the that seems to contradict that. Well-regulated militia would have to be regulated. That's my first solution to ending or cutting back on. Take a look at the gun crimes in the United States. The first number two. There's nothing. This goes back to my point about well-regulated people on the no violence. Well-regulated speech, well-regulated press. Make it a more serious crime to steal a gun. Right to assembly penalties for people who steal guns. Petition the government. None of that possession of stolen guns. The only one of the Bill of Rights that even has the firm very well regulated is the Second Amendment. Penalties. So what does that mean? Is it? I've had people tell me, take all the room we're going to save in our prisons, all the money we're going to save on that, prosecuting article messages, selling threads on Facebook and whatnot, and have harsh Second Amendment right commit gun crimes. Means that you can have anything that isn't a jail for that means surface-to-air missiles. That's simple. You hold up a drug rocket launchers, mortar shells, pistol whip gas. Those are all arms. You threaten somebody can't be infringed. If our right to keep their arms can't be infringed, then go to jail for a long time. We can have harsher prison sentences if we can make them people with, and if not, if we don't have an, rape, right to keep and bear any arm, where do you do away with throwing people in jail for non-violent, for victimless crimes like drugs, or strong prosecutions and things like that. My opinion is human trafficking, automatic weapons. It is very hard to purchase and have harsher penalties for violence. And that's been on the books since the 1930s. Those are my solutions for cutting. Has that led to gun confiscation? Gun crimes in general. Harsher penalties for stealing, gun confiscation. People think, oh, we're going to ban all guns, being in possession of stolen. First of all, that's just illogical. Harsher penalties for people who commit gun crimes. Improbable. There is no way the government, even in federal, state, and local working together, could confiscate all the guns, or even the majority of guns. I think if we did all those, there would be far less gun crimes in society. And also in our schools, first solution is to put semi-automatic. We can teach rifles, problem solving, at least semi-automatic rifles. You don't have the same violence regulations in order to automatic. If you have a problem, if somebody insults you, you don't have to beat them up. If somebody hits on your girlfriend or boyfriend, you don't have to for that. Resort to violence. But it prevents somebody from just getting mad at their boss, going down to the local sporting goods store, ways to teach students to deal with conflict resolution that doesn't involve violence. That's kind of ridiculous. A lot of times these another point that people bring up is, well, if they don't use AR-15s, they're going to use something else, turning into guns. So that's okay. Just let them have those. Since they don't have those, they're going to use something else. It's like saying, well, I would lock up my drain cleaner because my toddler likes to put things in his mouth. And well, if he doesn't put drain cleaner in his mouth, he's going to put something else in his mouth, so I'm going to leave my drain cleaner sitting out. It doesn't make sense. Why should we make it easier for penalties for selling guns to people? A lot of people really quick buy a list. Either you're a private citizen or a gun dealer. And how many universal background checks and make it easier for law enforcement to get in the last 20 years. This is a Columbine background check. Happened with people with knives. I think there was a knife attack in China where 5 people should be able to appeal that process too. I think they stabbed like 30 people. Okay, what if they all had AR-15s?
so need
How many
right
more
now.
people would they have?
So get your butt out of the camera.
Okay, I can
Okay,
outrun a
that's
lot of
what you
people wielding knives. I can't.
And then
outrun
my
bullets.
solution for cutting back on gun crimes in
People say,
general,
well, what about
and
pressure
war
on
drugs,
cookers and
harsher
cars
penalties
when
when
people
people
commit
commit
gun
gun
crimes,
crimes,
especially
again,
stealing and
how
selling
many
and
mass murders have been done
possession of
with
stolen
pressure
guns?
cookers?
How many mass murders have been done with cars compared to
and harsher penalties for people
semi-automatic
who
rifles?
commit violent crimes in general.
First of all,
So
why
if you
was
agree with me,
the
great. If you
AR-15
disagree with me,
originally
explain in the comments why I'm wrong.
and manufactured? It was for the military.
Give me
it wasn't for
some constructive criticism why I'm wrong.
It was for
Don't
military.
just call me stupid
the
or
military.
that's happened a
by
lot
law,
in the last
then they
few
marketed
days,
them
or
to
whatever you
civilians.
want to call me. But have
So
a
that argument
constructive
is silly,
dialogue about the
we
best
don't-
ways to
they don't have these
prevent
as
mass
shootings
shootings.
because
Oh, and before I forget,
already
another
pointed
people say,
out
well,
that,
we just have to put God back in schools.
another argument
we wouldn't have all the mass shootings.
against gun control
Is that to suggest that all these countries
the
that don't have the mass
argument
shooting
that,
problem we have God in schools?
that bad guys are going to get
Iceland,
guns in the black market,
Germany,
which is true. I mean,
Italy,
but
whatnot,
really, how
they,
easy is it to get an
know,
AR-15 on the black market? First of all,
they have got more God in schools than we do.
It's kind of hard to smuggle an AR-15
I
around.
think we're one of the most
compared
religious
to
countries on the
handgun.
planet, and we still have problems.
Look at the size difference.
Oh,
But
another
keep
thing,
a handgun
I keep thinking of
concealed
things.
and
People say,
discreet
well,
pass it to somebody in
more
exchange
people
for
kill
money
with
than
cars
using
than guns. That's
AR-15.
true, but look what it takes to
Which brings me to another.
people say, well, we ban motor vehicles, and that doesn't work. You have to have a license.
I can put a
you
lot of
regularly
drugs
to
in my
get
hand.
renewed.
Pills,
You have to take a driver's
weed,
test to
coke.
get the license.
I can't conceal
Cars,
AR-15
we
in my
mandate that they have
hand.
airbags,
Once again,
and they have to have
comparing
working,
guns and drugs,
lights
it's
and
just silly.
brakes.
It's not a logical argument.
You have to wear a seatbelt.
So I think we should just make
regulations about cars.
semi-automatic rifles as hard to buy
So
as
why don't we do that
automatic
with
rifles.
guns? That's
If
my
you want to
solution to
compare
help
cars to
preventing
mass
Okay.
murders. I think
We got a
should
lot
have
of
universal background
license
checks.
regulations for cars.
I
Why
think
not
it should be
guns?
easier for law
There's
enforcement
so much
to
for
put
that
people
argument.
on
And
first
the
of all, cars
the list
or
or
not
sale list. There she comes again.
cars were not made to kill
and
people. Caution on that
What,
side.
what was the
Still
original purpose of the AR-15?
allows law-abiding citizens to purchase
Anyway,
weapons
those are
for
my solutions.
self-defense or for
Sorry, I was kind of a little all over the place today. This is a very long video. But like I said, leave comments.
So there's another argument, and that
literally had
use a
video response. Anyway,
on online say that we have
really
a
mean that.
God-given right to bear arms.
You really think God wants us to be armed? If Jesus were around today, would he be passing out AR-15s to his disciples? If he run a gun shop? God-given right to have guns? What does religion have to do with guns? I mean, seriously. And then, people say, well, guns are just inanimate objects. They can't kill anybody. That's, well, if guns don't kill people, why do we give them to soldiers when they're going into combat? Shouldn't we give them anything? Guns don't kill people? Hey, let's give them a feather duster. Guns don't kill people. Why should soldiers have them? Think about it. If guns are an inanimate object, which they are, by the way, then how many people are willing to sacrifice their lives for their guns? You have the old phrase, you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead hand. So you're willing to sacrifice your life so you don't have to give up an inanimate object. An inanimate object is worth more than your life. Wow. Once again, this goes back to the mass confiscation theory, which is stupid. Okay, let's look at gun confiscation throughout history. How many times has a democratically elected government confiscated a country's guns and then waged war against the country's civilians? Because of the history of democracy, you can go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, and they didn't have guns, but how many times has a democratically elected government disarmed its population and then waged war on the population? People point to the Soviet Union. That wasn't a democratically elected country, government. Khmer Rouge wasn't democratically elected. And then to say that the government is going to turn its guns on its civilians if we didn't have guns is a total insult to the military. My dad served over 20 years in the military. He did a tour of duty in Southeast Asia during Vietnam. A forward air command, very dangerous job. And to suggest that, if the president during my dad's 20 plus years would have told him, go drop bombs, he was in the Air Force, go drop bombs on civilians, he wouldn't have done that. His oath was to the Constitution, not to the president, not even to his commanders. His oath was to the Constitution. That came first. So to suggest that our rank and file military men and women would just turn their guns on civilians just because they were ordered to is really insulting to our men and women in uniform. That they would just do that so easily, turn their guns on their fellow man. Okay, let's say they did. Let's say somehow
we elect some guy who becomes, a megalomaniac, and he wants the military to disarm the United States. Yeah, look at what the military has at its disposal, and look at what civilians have at their disposal. It's not going to be pretty. You know, civilians armed with even AR-15s against tanks and gunships and A-10 attack planes and stuff like that. I mean, come on. This whole mass confiscation thing is just stupid. Anybody who believes it is just living in a fantasy world. And once again, they're putting inanimate objects over lives. Guns are not more important than lives. So my solution for cutting back on mass shootings: make automatic weapons, at least semi-automatic weapons, semi-automatic rifles. At least semi-automatic rifles. It's hard to get as automatic rifles. Make it easier to get people on the no-sale list and have universal background checks. Make it a federal crime to sell a weapon to somebody on the federal no-sale list. Doesn't matter if you're a gun dealer or a private citizen. If you sell somebody a gun and that person is on the no-sale list, then you should go to jail. And if that person uses that gun to commit a crime, you should go to jail for a long time. All right, so that's my solution for trying to prevent mass shootings. A lot of people say, well, we should arm teachers. That's not going to prevent a mass shooting. That's only if I can see the guy coming first and shoot him before he opens fire. That's reactive. We need to be proactive. And also, mass shootings don't just take place at schools. They've taken place at movie theaters, churches, concerts, nightclubs. So we're going to put heavily armed guards at every single public place in America. We're going to turn the United States into a giant prison where there's armed guards in every street. Is that really the world we want to live in? We cannot accept mass shootings as the price of liberty. Saying, oh, well, we can't prevent mass shootings without infringing on people's right to own any arm they want. That's just, come on. Lives are more important than inanimate objects. Now, a lot of people say, well, what about all these murders in places like Chicago and New Orleans and Baltimore and places like that? Yeah, that is a problem, and it is a big problem. Here's my solution to cutting back on gun crimes. Number one, end the war on drugs. How many gun crimes are committed because of drug territory, drug dealers gone bad, things like that. People stealing in order to buy drugs on the black market. And the war on drugs, at the very least, legalize marijuana nationwide. That way, it takes all the gangsterism out of that trade. That's my first solution to ending or cutting back on gun crimes in the United States. Number two, and this goes back to my point about selling arms to people on the no-buy list. Make it a more serious crime to steal a gun. Harsher penalties for people who steal guns, people who are in possession of stolen guns, and people who sell stolen guns. Those should be very harsh penalties for all of those crimes. Two, take all the room we're going to save in our prisons, all the money we're going to save by not, prosecuting potheads and people selling an ounce of weed on the street corner, and have harsher penalties for people who commit gun crimes. You commit a crime with a gun, you go to jail for a long time. It's that simple. You hold up a drugstore, you pistol whip somebody, you threaten somebody with a gun, you shoot a neighbor in a dispute, you go to jail for a long time. Have harsher prison sentences for people with gun crimes. And not only that, but violent crimes in general, rape, assault. Do away with throwing people in jail for for victimless crimes like drugs and prostitution, things like that, unless prostitution involves human trafficking, then of course that's a crime. And have harsher penalties for violent crimes. So those are my solutions for cutting back on gun crimes in general. Harsher penalties for stealing weapons, selling stolen weapons, being in possession of stolen weapons, and harsher penalties for people who commit gun crimes, and just violent crimes in general, and ending the war on drugs, especially the war on marijuana. I think if we did all those, there would be far less gun crimes in society. And also in our schools, and is that we can teach problem solving for young kids, that you don't have to resort to violence in order to, if you have a problem. If somebody insults you, you don't have to beat them up. If somebody hits on your girlfriend or boyfriend, you don't have to resort to violence. Those are stupid. We need more
We need more ways to teach students to deal with conflict resolution that doesn't involve violence. A lot of times these gun crimes start something small and then they end up turning into guns. Hello, there's the mousy, the tuxedo cat, and her tail on my face. So that's my solution. To help prevent mass shootings, make semi-automatic rifles harder to get. Increase penalties for selling guns to people on the no-buy list, whether you're a private citizen or a gun dealer. And have universal background checks and make it easier for law enforcement to get people on the background checks. And if you feel you've been put on that background check for reasons that you disagree with, then you should be able to appeal that process too. Mousy, why are you being so needy right now? So get your butt out of the camera. Okay, let's put you on the floor. And then my solution for cutting back on gun crimes in general and the war on drugs, harsher penalties for people who commit gun crimes, especially stealing and selling and being in possession of stolen guns, and harsher penalties for people who commit violent crimes in general. So if you agree with me, great. If you disagree with me, explain in the comments why I'm wrong. Give me some constructive criticism why I'm wrong. Don't just call me stupid or, well, that's happened a lot in the last few days, or whatever you want to call me. But have a constructive dialogue about the best ways to prevent mass shootings. Oh, and before I forget, other people say, well, if we just had to put God back in schools, that we wouldn't have all these mass shootings. Is that to suggest that all these countries that don't have the mass shooting problem we have God in schools? Sweden, Iceland, Germany, Italy, whatnot, that they have got more God in schools than we do? I don't think they do. I think we're one of the most religious countries on the planet, and we still have problems with mass shootings. Oh, another thing, I keep thinking of things. People say, well, more people are killed with cars than guns. That's true, but look what it takes to own and operate a motor vehicle. You have to have a license. You have to go regularly to get it renewed. You have to take a driver's test to get the license. Cars, we mandate that they have airbags and they have to have working, lights and brakes, and you have to wear a seatbelt. There's all kinds of rules and regulations about cars. So why don't we do that with guns? If you want to compare cars to guns, okay, we got a lot of license regulations for cars. Why not guns? So there's so much of that argument, And first of all, cars were not. Here she comes again. Cars were not made to kill people. What was the original purpose of the AR-15? Come on, let's be honest here. So anyway, those are my solutions. Sorry I was kind of a little all over the place today. This is a very long video. But like I said, leave comments, constructive criticisms in the comments below, or even use a video response. Anyway, peace. I really mean that. Peace. I can end this.